Hi everyone, Trina here with a flip through of a junk journal that I made for Maymay at maymaymadeit.com. This is my very first junk journal that I ever made. I'm kind of proud of it, although, I learned a lot along the way. You're looking at it from a top-down view right now, so you can see that she is pretty chunky. Here on the spine, there is some lace. I also have this little dangly thing here. It can be used as a bookmark or just a decorative accent piece. It can be moved out of the way so that when you have it laying down and journaling, you can just get it out of the way so that it doesn't make your book lumpy. Or this lace material is a little bit stretchy, so you could just pop it off if you want. Alright, and there's just a giant button here. I did a twine binding. To be honest with you, it's not my favorite because I don't feel like I could get this as tight as I can with some other kind of binding, but there it is. I mean, it's pretty and everything, but I feel like the signatures can move around a little bit much. Alright, I used a little bit of that stretchy lace and some bias tape, gold bias tape, just to wrap around it to keep it closed. I don't have it centered necessarily at the moment, but then that comes off. The name of this journal is Faith, and it's Faith 1 because it's the first one that I did, and I've actually made 3 that are titled Faith, and they're all similar but different. Now I went to the library, local library, and I bought a whole bunch of old used books that they were selling. And what a bargain. I bought an entire set of encyclopedias for like $1. So this cover that I've used for this journal is from that set of encyclopedias. And those encyclopedias are, I think, from like 1980. And I just thought that the covers are so rich and pretty that I didn't want to completely cover it. I did put some material on the spine because when I was gutting this book, I did cut it a little bit, so the spine's been reinforced with material, and then I glued some of this lace down on top of that material as well. And the material that's underneath is some vintage curtain material, which is probably from, I'd say, the 1980s. Anyway, I mean, it's not perfect, but I wanted it to be loose and kind of floppy and frayed because, it's a junk journal. So anyway, on the front, you see that there is a picture of Jesus crucified with a frame around it, and I don't know if you can tell on camera or not, but I do have a piece of like acetate in there to serve as like a frame. And then here is a book plate. It just simply says journal. And we'll just go ahead and move on. Now I have to tell you, I think that this thing is beautiful. I love it. I think it's a gorgeous like piece of art, and even if you stood it in a corner with like this, up against a wall or something, or at a bookend, I think it's just lovely. Oh, I do want to say that the paper pad that I used for this is from Craft Smart, which I just bought at Michael's, and I love to go there when they have their $5.99 for a paper pad. And this one is called Hope and Faith, and it's actually a Christmas paper set, but it's all about Jesus and the coming, so I thought that it was appropriate for this. And the reason that I titled it Faith is because, as you'll see as we go through, there's quite a bit of faith imagery in here. So let me just make sure that we're in here. Alright, I kept the end papers from the encyclopedia. I did trim it down. I glued it here to make a little pocket, added some of that decorative designer paper here. It's punched on the ends, and here's just a letter from the maker, and that goes there, and I'm not sure what that is. Alright, so this does have 3 signatures. As I said, I did a twine binding for it, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright, it's going to be kind of hard to go through this because it doesn't really lay flat because it's chock full of goodies. But here at the beginning, in the first signature, I did 2 little tuck spots, and I made this little booklet. Just has some tea-stained paper in there, and there's the cover with a nice little gold ribbon to hold it in place. So I just tuck the bottom in and the top, and that goes there. All right, the first page has some stenciling, has a nice little border here. It's a little ribbon that I distressed with some ink. It has a little bulb pin here that has a little bead and a little cross charm. Next page, you can see more of the lace on this side. And I think I painted that with gold, although it doesn't look very gold to me, but it's gold. And here I adhered this little pouch. Can't really do that because I did glue it down. But inside are several little cards. They do have paper on the back with lines on it so that you could journal. And you could look at these different Bible verses, I suppose, and reflect on those and maybe make some notes about how you've experienced that in your life. So there are several of them here, and they're just tucked in that pocket. Maybe whenever you need a little inspiration or just a pick-me-up, you can grab one of those out. Here is this page. I actually have it folded back, but again, it's that image, but it's the entire image of Christ crucified. And this is a pocket, and inside there is a tag. And this is the tag. And I did some decoupage with another image. I don't know if you can see the gold on there, but I've put gold paint on and around the edges. Quite a bit of lace and ribbon on the end. And the back of it is just completely covered in gold. It's really pretty. All right, and then again, that just tucks in here. And it does leave room at the end here. That's open too, so if you had a really thin tag or something, you could technically tuck it into there. And then you have a bunch of journaling space here. And some of these papers, it's going to be kind of hard to tell, but if you catch them in a certain light, I used some mica powder when I was doing my tea staining, coffee staining, whatever staining I was doing. And so some of them have a little bit of faint sparkle to them. All right, there are some papers in here that are between 80 to 120 years old. This is one of them, this piece right here. I estimate this is around 120 years old. All right, over here we have an upper tuck spot. This is just a little card that opens like this. You can journal there. And there is a pocket on the front, which I didn't put anything in. But if you wanted to tuck a little photograph or something like that on there, or even on the back, you could. It's up to you. All right, here's some more vintage paper. And although I did go around the edges with distress ink, it is probably around 100 years old. All right, the next page here. This has an upper tuck as well as a little foot pocket down here. And inside is this envelope that I've distressed and did a little collage on it. If you open it up, inside there is, well, maybe. I swear there is, and I swear you can get it out. Just a little card for journaling. All right, there's that. Let's tuck that back in, tuck it back up there. Next page, it's blank for journaling. And here, inside of this, is another little envelope. This is a handmade envelope. And there's a little seal that I made on there, imperfect as it is. And this envelope opens up. I left it so that it could be opened so that you could journal on the inside and the back side. Outside, I suppose you'd say. And that's that, and so that just goes in here. You could put other goodies in this little pouch as well, if you so choose. Over here we have like a triple little envelope. In this little envelope, there's just a little piece of paper that's been partially stenciled, and it's just folded up. Just a little note. Goes back in there. Little tag here. And then here is this. Now this thing, It was fun to make. My little hearts are a little crooked. There's a little bit of Wink of Stella on the hearts. I don't know if you can tell. I mean, I can barely tell. But I just embellished it with a little button. It's tied off in the back. But this little heart comes out, so you could journal on that little heart. And this little heart comes out. You can journal on that one. And there is this little tag, just blank, but there's a little tag inside of there. And that goes back in that envelope. This is edged with a little bit of lace with a bulb pin with a little cross on it. Alright, more blank pages, and this is the center of our signature. Here's where it's bound more or less to the cover. However, it could come out. I mean, you'd have to probably take all the goodies out to get it out, but you could technically take this out. However, you can see the other twine here where the signature is actually stitched together, all the pages. Alright, next page is blank, but there is the other side of that envelope, and inside is this. And this just simple little brad closure. You unhook it, you open it, it has a belly band, and then just a couple of little cards that you could journal on. And again, they just go in that little belly band, and that's covered. And you could actually write inside of this if you wanted to. If you had a white pen or a gold pen. Actually, I think writing on it with a white pen might be actually pretty, really pretty. Alright, so put that back around, put it back in the envelope, I mean the little glassine bag that I used for a pocket. More blank journaling space, and this is just a little bit of a stencil there. More of that very vintage paper, and the other piece of very vintage paper. And here I just put some ribbon around, and at the end there's just a little safety pin with another little cross attached to it. And here, blank page, this is just the back of another image, the Last Supper. And then another blank page, and it has some ribbon there with a little bulb pin with just a little bead on it. And then over here we have blank pages, and this is actually the end of the first signature. And there's a paper clip here, as you can see. It has a little dangly on it. If you pull that off, this comes off, and this is a doily that has paper inside, so you could actually open it, and you have all these places that you could journal. Alright, so that just clips back on. There we go. Alright, moving on to the second signature. Second signature, the front of it has a pocket, and there is this little book page pocket that I made, and I used a few books for this. As I said, I got the covers from an encyclopedia set that they were getting rid of that I bought for $1, but I also bought like some books about faith and very vintage books actually, as well as some Bibles that were damaged, that were being thrown out, so I like to repurpose those things. Anyway, inside here is just some dyed paper, blank on both sides, that you can use to journal on. That just tucks right back in there. Next page is another little tuck spot, and here's another envelope. Just opens up like this, and this one I have not sealed, but inside are some pages from one of those vintage books, as I mentioned. I think this is from one of the vintage Bibles, and I've just torn them out and distressed them and put them inside. Okay. Oh yeah, I also punched the corners of the envelope so that they wouldn't be corners. Just give them a little bit of a decorative flair there. Alright, and it just goes like that. And all my pages flipped. Let me get back to where I was. Here we go. Alright, and here is a page with Mary and baby Jesus. And then over here, it's a tuck spot there. And it's just a journaling card, but I also left space here so that if you wanted to put a photo in there, you could. You could adhere it on here and journal on the back about the photo. Okay, more blank paper. And here is a tag, and it's gold on the back, has more of that really pretty ribbon and lace on the end. Just tucks into a snippet from a paper bag, one of those bags that I cut up, glassine bags. Over here, next page, we have another tuck spot made out of that. It's the other side of it. And here, tied with this pretty ribbon, is this little notebook that's actually adhered on the back. And there's some things about God and the love of God here. Then you open it up, and there's just a whole bunch of resume paper in here. You can see I actually stitched it in. A whole bunch of resume paper in here for you to journal on. Okay, I'll just go ahead and lay that in there for now, and I'll come back and tie it later. All right, more of that vintage paper. More tea-stained paper, and some pretty lace on the end, and a safety pin with a little bead on it. And then over here, there's part of a little white envelope sticking up here, and I've just used that to tuck this little notepad in there. Okay. And next is another pocket made out of book pages. And there's another one of these little cards here, similar to one I showed you before. A little pocket here, and it just goes inside that pocket. And then in the top, it's actually two pieces glued together, but there's a pocket here. And I made this, I braided some hemp twine and made a cross out of it and made just a nice little tag there. And that goes back in the center. And then when you flip it over, there's another tag here. And I did some lines on the back for journaling. Again, there's space there if you wanted to add something below. You could do that, something below the cluster. Here's the other side of that little white bag. I actually cut the side of it so that it becomes a pocket. And inside here is this little folded over piece of paper that has several pockets. We have a tag here, a tag here, a tag in the center piece, and then on this side there's another tag. It just has a little bow on this side because that's actually a button that I used, so I tied it off like that. And then this little round tag that has little lined paper inside, just a few pieces, and then just the back. Okay, there's that one. That goes back in here. More blank paper, more of that vintage paper. Here's some tea-stained, or it's just resume paper that I inked up, and I put a doily down and inked around it and used the doily as sort of a stencil. More tea-stained paper with some really pretty lace on the side and a little bulb pin with a little bead on it. And then here is an envelope, and I just trimmed it with this pretty ribbon. And on this side, you see there's a card there for journaling, and inside is this little envelope. Nice little cluster on it, and it opens like this. There's just some scraps of paper. There are some scraps of paper here. And then on this side, more little scraps of paper tucked in. Of course, you could tuck in whatever you wanted. And then here, you can split it apart, and it reveals a little, sorry about that, extra little piece of paper for journaling. And this just slips into there, in theory. Works out better when I'm not trying to hold that at the same time I'm doing this. Alright, so we'll just slip that back inside, and then this will just go right back in there. And I left the ribbons hanging out intentionally like that. Alright, there we go. Next page. This is the back of the second signature. Now these little things are, they're paper clipped. The paper clips come off, but the paper clips are there to hold them so that they don't expand without you wanting them to. Now every single one of them does this, so it gives you extra journaling space. Front, and technically you could journal on the back. So there are 3 of these, as I said, to give you extra journaling space. And each one of these is held on with a little red paper clip that has some sort of bobble on it. Okay, end of the second signature. Now we're into our third. Okay, the first thing here is we have a belly band, and again a picture of Christ, and inside just some lined stained paper that you can journal on. And let's just tuck this back in. And there you go. Alright, more blank paper for journaling. More paper for journaling. I did a little bit of stenciling on this tracing paper and put a little bit of ribbon on the edge. And here we go again. Stenciling obviously shows through because it's tracing paper. More blank paper with a pretty little flower ribbon and a bulb pin with a little dangly on it. Alright, here we have a top tuck spot, easy for you to say, and this just opens, and it's just a faux envelope and just made for journaling. Let's just tuck that back in there. As you can see as we're going along, oh, and that is that very vintage paper right there. It's like 120 years old. You know, this isn't perfect, but it is perfectly handmade. Alright, so here we go, part of that bag, and I made a little pocket, a floatable pocket, to go inside of there, and inside is this tag and this tag. They're the same, but even though it's gold on the back, there's not really gold on there, but you could journal on it if you had the right kind of pen. Doesn't matter. I mean, that's what they're made for, is for journaling. Alright, that just goes back in there. Alright, more blank resume paper here. And then over here, there's this little corner tuck. And this flips up, so it gives you extra journaling place. Again, there's some of that mica powder on here. Now, I didn't invent this. This isn't new to me. But what is new, I guess, is I call this a PS pocket. It's like an afterthought. You know, you're journaling, you're writing, and you're like, oh yeah, by the way, PS. So, I call this a PS pocket. Now, here's a little pocket that I made out of my baking paper that I used to dye my papers. And I just made a little pouch. And then here is a tag. And this has been decoupaged, well, decoupaged, but done with Mod Podge. So here we go. Just stick that back in. Again, plenty of space for journaling. Here is some lace here. It's actually not a great material. I mean, it's very fine and I like the way it feels, but it didn't take ink very well when I was distressing it, but there it is. Here is a safety pin with a little bead on it. Next, we have another bag that has another little card in it. And again, a pocket in the front. It does this. You could journal all over it. And that just sits in this bag. And of course, if whoever gets this can add stuff to those little bags. Alright, more of that pretty paper that is very vintage. And on this side, I put some lace trim, a little safety pin with a little bead on it. And then on this side of it, using some of that paper that I told you, the paper pack, I put Glory to the Newborn King there. I did some punching on the corners, and it just opens up, and it's more journaling space. And I love that pattern that happened when I was staining or dyeing. There we go. And now we're to some tracing paper. And here, this isn't necessarily my favorite thing, but it's here. There it is. There's a little paper clip here holding that, little bead on it. And you open it. This is like a tuck spot here. And this comes out, and these are just little envelopes that are folded up, and they have little cards in them. There's that, and then just a little red piece here that folds out that you could write on, a little journaling space. So you could actually take one of these and say to yourself, all right, what does this mean to me? And then you could journal about it on the red piece that's down below it. So there are four of each. Just wanted to make sure. All right, tuck that back in. All right, so then this flips up, the thing that was being held closed by the paper clip, that flips up, and then this opens out, and opens out, and opens out. So you have journaling space inside, And I hope I'm still in focus, and a little tag is in there. Put a little bit of paper on the back side for journaling. So yeah, this was a huge experiment, and as I say, it's not my favorite thing, but there it is. The deed is done. Alright, moving right along. More journaling space, and then in the back there's another belly band and a little foot spot, and there are 2 tags here. Made kind of lines on the backs of these so you could journal on them, and those just sit in here. Now the reason that I did this is because I spend a lot of time watching Maymay's videos. Oh, I'll get back to that in a minute. And this is just a real heavy card that I made. It's Mod Podged, but it's so that you can put it inside if you're journaling. You could put it underneath a piece of paper, and you have some stability, something to write on. Now, granted, this is a chunky baby, and it's going to be hard to journal in it in general with all this stuff in there, but of course you can take this stuff out and fill it back up as you complete things. And at the very back, again, the end paper is here. Now I folded this so you could fold it over if you want to, and you can clip it, but it's kind of a little pocket there, so you could tuck something in. But I did put this little piece of paper here. It says Faith number 1. That's my signature, handmade by Trina Jane Hoax, first quarter of 2020. And I put this in and named it Faith, and it's named Faith, but it's number 1, because I did end up making 3 faith journals using that paper pad. And this one was, as I said, my very first one, and my intention in making this was to send it to Maymay, because I do watch Maymay's videos, and I think you might have seen some things in here that I derived inspiration from her. And certainly with my scrapbooking, I've employed a lot of her techniques for little pockets and ways of folding things and so on. And so because I do watch her videos like all day long, I've probably watched every single video that she has out at least 5 times. I do listen to this while I'm working. I work from home, and I listen to her videos, and it's just always nice to have that nice, calming, friendly voice there in the background while I'm working, especially if I'm having a considerably stressful day. And funnily, I've actually been accused of being a troll a couple of times, which is okay, but I'm not, I assure you. But I also think that Maymay has created a wonderful, wonderful community, and I feel like all her people are so inspirational and so supportive of one another, and I like listening, especially when she does her Thursday videos, the Crafter Show and the Crafter After Show. So I wanted to give something back, because I have gotten so many hours of enjoyment and inspiration from Maymay, so this is my way of giving back. And my thought about this journal is that she could use it as maybe a door prize or something like that for her Made It Con. I was going to send this months ago, and then Corona happened and she postponed it, so I just held off. I had to figure out the whole recording thing, because I wanted to record a video about this journal so that people could look at it, because I feel like, because I know this journal, I'm going to be able to highlight the little tucks and all of that kind of thing, although I know Maymay could pull it off. But it is a time-consuming thing to go through this little darling here. So I figured I would do this video and put it up so that when Maymay gets this and she lets people know, if she does decide to do it as a door prize, no pressure, if she does decide to do that, she could refer people to this video just so they could see what it is they're entering for, and all the little niceties that are included inside. So my hope is to get this out in the mail this coming week to Maymay, and I know Made It Con has been postponed until July, so there will be plenty of time for her to get it and look at it herself. So that about wraps this up. Again, thank you so much for being such a wonderful host to a wonderful community of people, and I do hope that you do give this away as a door prize at Made It Con, or for any other drawing. I don't care. but I just wanted to give something back to you and your community.